Good morning. I have the pleasure of introducing my longtime friend, Donna Palombo. In 1993, Donna was the victim of a horrific crime, a brutal home invasion and rape. Unfortunately, Donna was victimized twice, once by a masked perpetrator and then by the police. The events of her story are incredible and unfolded like a crime novel in Waterbury's local paper, with Donna always listed as Jane Doe. Today, Donna is not only a survivor, she is a warrior and an advocate for victims. In 2007, she founded Jane Doe No More, a national organization that is doing so much to help victims of sexual assault and educate first responders. Donna is someone who has made a difference in the world because she has changed lives. Please listen to her story and welcome Jane Doe No More, Donna Palombo.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here with all of you today. I'd like to thank Mr. Ganung and my friend Lillian Seraphin and everyone from Taft for having us. I want to mention that if anyone feels the need to talk or seeks additional support after today's presentation, that Taft school counselors are always available and here to help. I'm going to begin by playing a video that is a synopsis of a 2-hour story that Dateline NBC did on my story.
We have an assault, a sexual assault. I'm the victim. He told me if I called the police that he would be back to kill me. The gentleman that did this said...
Do you know him?
What?
Do you know the guy?
No, I don't know him at all. But listen, he told me if I called the cops, he would kill me. I don't want...
He can't kill you. You're not there, are you?
No. I begged him to keep me alive. I felt something in my head. I thought it was a gun for sure.
Do you think he had a gun?
Yes, it was. I heard metal clanging, and he put it in my throat, and then he put it in my head, and then he put it in my
That assailant may have a gun. She can't give a description of him.
Oh, dear God.
Okay, try to stay calm. Okay, don't change your clothes or anything.
I didn't touch anything. I'm all ripped.
Listen to me, don't wash.
I didn't. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, I can't believe it.
Okay, you're doing good. Just hang in there. This sounds real serious.
Yeah, I know it is.
I remember hearing some footsteps, and I was still not quite awake, but thinking, that doesn't sound like little children's bare feet. There was a shadowy figure in my bedroom. As soon as I was coming out of my sleep, I realized that something was terribly wrong. He cut my clothing and he raped me.
By mid-October, 1 month after the attack, Donna felt she was making progress.
I'm gonna get through this, I'm gonna pull my family through this, and we're gonna be okay.
Then, a bombshell. At the police station, she says, the lieutenant sat her down, turned on a tape recorder, and read her rights. As the weeks went by, Donna's spirits plunged. She had gone to the police for help, and instead, she says, she was abused.
I could not eat, I could not sleep, I was completely devastated.
That's when she really became fragile. She just was, basically living on the edge.
I was at the most vulnerable stage in my healing, and he did this and totally wiped me out.
There was almost a perfect storm of mistakes, and it was just surprising because we've been trained otherwise.
Did they send the forensics team?
No.
Take photographs?
No.
Secure the crime scene?
No.
Canvass the neighbors? Talk to everybody?
No.
None of these things?
None of those things. The fact is that they didn't believe her, and they accused her of making the story up. And not only was she victimized that night of that horrific incident, but then she was victimized once again by the police department.
You don't feel done, do you, Donna?
No, not at all.
What's your next mission?
What I want to do is ensure proper treatment of the victim. And so we have formed the Jane Doe No More initiative.
What is it about this initiative that has you so excited?
It's the hope for the future. I hope that it gives courage to other women to know that if you're a victim of rape, you did nothing wrong. You can persevere, and you can even have a wonderful life.
am Donna Palombo, a happily married mother of 2 grown children, business consultant, and marketing executive. In 1993, I was tied, bound, and raped in my home in the middle of the night by a masked intruder. I am here to create change because the experience after the sexual assault was in many ways more damaging than the rape itself. I am Jane Doe no more. As soon as the perpetrator left, I was able to wriggle free, and I ran down to my children, who were ages 5 and 7, sleeping down the hall. As soon as I saw that they were sleeping soundly and untouched, I knew that we were going to be okay, and we would get through this. Unfortunately, right from the get-go, the crime scene was compromised. The house wasn't secured, and officers and family members that were arriving on the scene were going up and down the stairs. As you saw, no fingerprints or photographs were taken. Thankfully, I did go to the hospital, where I was treated for a scratched cornea. My eye was patched. Lacerations were noted on my wrists. And most importantly, DNA evidence was taken from the perpetrator's DNA evidence was found and collected from my body. Even though I survived and thought I did everything right that night of that horrible crime, something else was at play. The stigmas that are all too often associated with the crime of sexual assault. 1 month after the crime, I was well on my way to healing. I was focusing on my children and my husband. I was back to work and getting stronger every day, believing that the police were doing all they could to find that perpetrator. Unbeknownst to me or anyone in my family, someone in our community went to the lieutenant in charge of my case with a rumor that he had heard that I was having an affair and that the eldest child woke up and saw something. I put that child back to bed and concocted the rape to cover up an affair. All of this was a complete lie, but rather than talk to anyone who knew me to find out if it was true, the lieutenant took a different approach. And as you saw in the video, he tried to break me. For over 1 hour, this lieutenant abused me emotionally. He threatened me with everything I had. He told me I could lose my children, my husband, my career, my reputation, and that he had countless interviews and photographs that proved that I was lying. I told him repeatedly that I was telling the truth and that I had done nothing but tell the truth and to show me the evidence, all to no avail. Needless to say, my healing came to an abrupt halt, and I tremble today thinking about it. I could barely eat or sleep. I was thrown into a world that I knew nothing about. I had to go from victim to warrior to survivor, and no one should have to do that. My husband and I sought legal help. We were successful in having the investigation turned over from the Vice and Intelligence Division to the Criminal Investigation Bureau with a new set of officers. We asked that an internal affairs investigation be conducted. I wanted policies and procedures changed so that this trauma and re-traumatization could never happen to another victim. I wanted acknowledgement that I was telling the truth, and I wanted an apology. The internal affairs report came back after 1.5 years with a simple 1-page report stating that the officers congratulating them on a thorough investigation and that the lieutenant's conduct during that brutal interrogation was a proper investigative technique given the circumstances. I was devastated. I could not rest. This harmful behavior was not only tolerated but condoned. I decided to fight, and we filed a lawsuit against those officers. It took 7 years to go to trial, and they tried to stop me at every turn. Finally, the trial would begin in January of 2001. It lasted a month. The police were represented by 2 female defense attorneys who were absolutely brutal. They questioned everything from my motherhood to the terminology I used on the 911 call when I called the perpetrator a gentleman. Officers after officer swore to tell the truth and then proceeded to spew out hideous lies to cover for one another. Then, Dr. Henry Lee took the stand, and he had resampled the DNA in my case, and he testified about the proper handling of a crime scene, how fingerprints and photographs and sketches should be conducted immediately. And then Dr. David Johnson, who treated me from Yale, testified that the re-traumatization at the hands of the police was the primary cause of the post-traumatic stress that I suffer to this day. And then Neil O'Leary, the officer who is now in charge of my case, took the stand. He dared to tell the truth and went against his fellow officers, stating that there was never one shred of evidence to prove that I had done anything but tell the truth, ever. At the end of a long and arduous trial, the officers were found negligent. And really, this was the beginning of an amazing turnaround of events. Neil, as many of you know, Neil O'Leary went on to become the chief of police of Waterbury and is now mayor. He allowed me to come in and work with his detectives on a new manual for sexual assault and how they're treated, the sexual assault crimes are treated. And he never, ever forgot about my cold case. In 2004, he connected the dots. When a man in our community attacked his 21-year-old coworker and tried to rape her, she was able to break free. At the time of the arrest, a DNA sample from the perpetrator, John Regan, was taken. It came back a perfect match to the DNA in my case 11 years earlier. The man, John Regan, was leading a double life. He was from a prominent family and thought to be a happily married, church-going father of 3. He was well-liked and one of my husband's closest friends. They had known each other since kindergarten, grown up together, played football together. The news sent shockwaves throughout our community. So here we have irrefutable DNA evidence that John Regan is the perpetrator, and he could not be arrested for the crime of sexual assault in my case because of a statute of limitations. The only thing we could get him on was kidnapping. His family stood by him, and he was afforded the best attorneys that money could buy. And he got out on $350,000 bond. For 1 year, we waited to go to trial, and I didn't know if he would come back to kill me, as he had threatened too many times that night, or if my husband would find him and kill him. We never made it to trial because he attacked again. This time it was a 17-year-old girl leaving track practice at Saratoga Springs High School in New York. As she tried to get in her car, Regan jumped out of his van and grabbed her around the torso and the mouth. Thankfully, she was able to break free. When the police took Regan's van into evidence, they found a tarp, a noose, a syringe, a sedative, a shovel, and photos of his former victims and girls he had been stalking in Connecticut and New York. That is what it finally took to put John Regan behind bars. I believe we learn most from our greatest challenges, that we have a choice in how to act in every instance. I chose to come forward in 2007 on national television in a live interview with Meredith Vieira, followed by the airing of a Dateline NBC show on my story, and the launch of Jane Doe No More, a 501c3 charity. One of the first things we did was advocate for a change in the law, and I'm happy to say that in August of 2007, Governor Jody Rell came down to the Waterbury Police Department, the very building where I was abused and re-traumatized, and with me by her side, signed into law the removal of the statute of limitations on sexual assault cases involving DNA evidence in the state of Connecticut. We live in an uncertain world in an uncertain time. Everyone, especially our young people, should have every opportunity to fulfill their dreams. And it begins with knowledge that each of you is worthy and competent and loved, and that no one has the right to take control over you against your will. And that if you should fall victim to the sexual predators that live among us, that you are not alone. It is not your fault, and there is help. The statistics are staggering. Every 2 minutes, someone in this country is sexually assaulted, and most are under the age of 24. A recent study by the Department of Justice revealed that 95% of rapes on college campuses go unreported. Jane Doe No More stands here today as a voice for those who cannot speak. I had a dream that we could be a catalyst for change, to break the stigmas and end the silence about rape, the most misunderstood and underreported crime in our country. I had a dream that each victim of sexual assault would feel confident to come forward and knowing that they would be treated with dignity and respect. 30 years ago, it was taboo to talk about breast cancer. Then former First Lady Betty Ford came forward and said, I have breast cancer. She told the world. And she was the catalyst to remove the stigma about talking about it. She made it okay. Over the next 3 decades, women and men learned about breast cancer. Billions of dollars have been raised for research, and countless lives have been saved through education, awareness, and early detection. And look, at every October, there's pink ribbons everywhere, buildings lit up in pink, and Major League Baseball players swinging pink bats. We are determined to do that same thing for the crime of sexual assault. Today, Jane Doe No More is educating and giving girls of all ages potentially life-saving skills through our Escape Alive self-defense programs. I am happy to let you know that we will be bringing this program to Taft next month. Stay tuned for more details. To date, we have provided enhanced training for law enforcement and first responders to over 2,500 police departments across this country at no cost. And we have a team of incredibly brave women and men who have come forward to tell their story, their very personal story, and to help other victims realize that they are not alone and that there is help. We are raising awareness through personal experience and spreading the Jane Doe No More message of hope. No more shame, no more blame, no more fear. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you to one of those brave people. Kate is 21 years old and has been a volunteer speaker for Jane Doe No More for about 2 years now. Kate is an EMT and a senior at Western Connecticut State University, where she is studying law enforcement. Please welcome Kate Costabile.
The pressure's hard as I'm shaken with power by hands of a man who won't take no as an answer. A 39-year-old man, husband, and father of 2, drove all the way from Pennsylvania to Connecticut on 3 occasions to rape me. On his last visit, he got what he was after. That same man got only 10 years in federal prison for his crime, while I, an innocent 13-year-old girl at the time, received a life sentence. The man found me on the popular website MySpace. He yellow-paged my last name in order to find my address. He also saw that I ran cross-country and that I was on the swim team for my high school through pictures on my profile page. Then he went to my high school's website and found dates and times for my sporting events. For him, it was like hitting the jackpot. He had found a young girl who never imagined something terrible like rape could ever happen to her. On August 13th, I was playing outside with my neighbor when I noticed a black Harley-Davidson motorcycle drive up my road 3 or 4 times. The girl I was playing with had gone inside to use the bathroom, so I waited outside on the curb for her to come back out. Then that same motorcycle drove up my road one more time. It was then that he had stopped and started to walk towards me. He said, "I'm lost. Do you think you can help me?" So, of course, the small-town girl from Oxford that I am walked to the top of the hill to give the man directions. It was then that he grabbed me and put me on the back of his bike. He drove to a dead end in my neighborhood and told me, "You don't know who I am, but I know you." My birthday had been a few days earlier, and he had brought me gifts. Then he started hugging me and kissing my neck. I was repulsed and confused, but I didn't know what to do. It was like I had lost the ability to think or even move. Then a car turned down the road and the man stopped. It was then that I ran home, completely out of breath and soaked in my own sweat. I promised myself on that day that I would never tell anyone what had happened. The man drove by my house a few more times throughout the rest of the night, up until about 10. I listened for those loud pipes on his motorcycle for the rest of that day, and every time I heard them, I got more and more petrified inside. October 13th was a cold and rainy day. I had just finished up cross-country practice and was soaked from head to toe. As I walked to the front of the school to wait for my ride, the man pulled up in a black SUV, got up, put me in the front seat, told me to call my mom and tell her that I didn't need a ride, I was all set. The car reeked of cigarettes and body odor. He drove to a park near my school, but because of the rain, no one was there that day. He reached into the middle console and pulled out condoms. He told me that I'd be lucky if he even took the time to put one on. He pulled my pants to my ankles and started to touch me inappropriately. I struggled to get my pants back up around my waist, and I got out of the car and ran. But there was nowhere for me to go, and the man finally easily got me. He brought me back to the SUV and told me not to try something so foolish like that again because he wasn't going to let me go that easily. As I sat there in the passenger seat of his car again, he reached back into that middle console. I assumed he was reaching for the condoms, but it was then that I realized the man was carrying a gun. On January 13th, I had a swim meet at Naugatuck High School. I looked up in the bleachers to find my mother's face, and I saw that the man had found a seat right next to her. My stomach dropped, and a huge knot formed inside of me. When I walked out of the locker rooms afterwards, the man was waiting for me. He brought me to his car and drove away. That same odor of cigarettes and body odor lingered. He pulled into a hotel parking lot and demanded that I give him oral sex. Later, he drove to Naugatuck High School. I got out of the car at this point and I ran, but it was all woods and I didn't know where I was going, so again, the man easily found me. At this point, he threw me in the back of his SUV and ripped my clothes off. He tried to have intercourse with me, and I refused. He told me, "I want to show you how making love feels, not just sex, because there's a difference." I tried to put up a fight by kicking and punching. I tried with everything in my power to get him off of me. I took punches to my face and to my body, and with every hit that I took, I just got weaker. But I continued to try to fight him off. It was then that I felt the gun held up against my head. And in that moment, I knew I had to give the man what he wanted if I ever wanted to breathe another breath, see another day, or hug my mom and dad one more time. So I gave in to the demands of my rapist. There are no words to describe the way that I felt as I laid in the back of his SUV after the rape. Everything was done, and I was in complete physical and emotional pain. Looking back at my rape now, I feel two things. One, a sense of thankfulness that I'm still here today, and two, anger towards the man who stole my innocence away from me at the young age of 13. But as they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I am living proof of that statement. I am no longer a victim of rape. Now, I am a survivor. Social networking sites pose a great danger to everyone on them. Even if you think that you are safe and that nothing like rape could ever happen to you, sites like MySpace, Facebook, and Twitter open the door to sexual predators like Steve. Please be smart about the information you post on these sites, because sexual predators never stop looking for their next victim. Everything is gone, and I'm left weak in the arms of a predator looking for and wanting only me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Together with Kate and others from Jane Doe No More, we are building a vocal, vibrant, and visible survivor community. And with your help, we will continue to grow in strength and numbers. Please consider liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter and visiting our website, janedoenomore.org. Check out our calendar of events. There are many ways to get involved if you so choose. We also now have a book that was published this fall titled Jane Doe No More, which is a detailed account of my story. The book is available at the Taft Library and for purchase on our website. Kate and I really enjoyed being here with you this morning. Thank you again for the opportunity.